So the Israeli War Cabinet has approved that controversial plan for military occupation and control of Gaza City. The Netanyahu government plan is to put boots on ground. Their aim is to disarm Hamas and launch that terrorist organization that launched that attack on Israel, killing more than 1,200 people in Israel and taking more than 250 hostages. Israel hopes that the 50 remaining hostages, 20 are still believed to be alive, they may return to Israel after this operation. But the opinion, not just in the world, but even within Israel, is split. And joining me to talk more about this plan is Israel's ambassador to India, Ambassador Reuven Azar. Ambassador, welcome.
Hello, Gaurav. Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir. How are you?
Good.
Sir, give us details of what this plan is, the plan to put boots on ground in Gaza.
Well, as you know, Gaurav, the Israeli cabinet has decided on the second day of this terrible attack of Hamas that we have to achieve several goals. First is to completely neutralize the military capabilities of Hamas, to make sure it doesn't rearm and regroup, and to bring back our hostages. We've been using both military pressure and diplomacy, and this way we've been able to retrieve 205 hostages, out of them 148 alive. Now, we were about to sign a deal.
Yes.
But despite the efforts of the Americans and of the mediators, Hamas has rebuked this deal. And therefore, Israel has no choice but to go back to military pressure. Now, there are two remaining strongholds of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Mm-hmm. Israel is already controlling 70% of the area. It's Gaza City, that's the heavyweight, let's say, stronghold, and central and south shore of the Gaza Strip, where most of the refugee population is situated. So Israel will attack Hamas to get their main stronghold neutralized, and through this military pressure, we hope to achieve the goals, finally, to bring the hostages back and to get Hamas to renounce power. The war can end today. It could end a year ago if Hamas would agree, would accept the fact that they have been defeated and renounced power. But they are refusing to cooperate, and therefore, we have to put more military pressure.
There are many who say that this will end up being a forever war. That Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu does not want this war to end. This would be endless. Do you have an end game? Does Israel have an end game in mind? This is the goal I want to achieve. The moment this goal is achieved, it's a ceasefire.
So the Prime Minister actually has been elaborating on that point exactly yesterday. Beyond the two goals that I mentioned before, what we want to achieve in Gaza is a demilitarized Gaza Strip.
Completely demilitarized, no Hamas control.
Completely demilitarized, in which the civilian control will be taken by a more moderate force in coordination with the Arab world and international community, and that Israel will have overriding security control so we can make sure that Hamas doesn't come back. This is the game plan.
Now, like you said, Israel already controls between 70 to 75% of Gaza Strip already. Yes. With this operation, do you intend controlling 100% of that Gaza Strip, 80% of that Gaza Strip? And what if Hamas remains in the remaining portion and then through those tunnels or some way continues to come in? Your soldiers, your people would be at risk.
Well, first of all, if we have no choice, we will have to take 100%. We prefer to refrain from that. We prefer to end the war now, but we have to achieve our goals. And therefore, we are pretty determined, and we are pretty convinced. You know, we've managed to kill 25,000 Hamas terrorists. Those that are remaining are much unexperienced and younger, many teenagers. And the Hamas leadership inside the Gaza Strip and also outside is unwilling to accept reality, the reality of their defeat. And therefore, they are those who are prolonging the war. Israel is not interested in prolonging the war forever, and Israel is not in the business of trying to occupy Gaza forever. No, we withdrew from Gaza in 2005. We want to withdraw again, but we won't take the risk that Hamas will go back to our borders to do the 7th of October again, which they have stated already they want to do. And therefore, it is a long war. People are tired everywhere, but we have to be persistent because the alternative is the return of Hamas and endless cycles of violence in the future.
You know, while you attempt to achieve this? You're saying 25,000 Hamas terrorists have been killed. The fact is, people in Palestine say over 60,000 people, so many women, so many children have been killed, so many children are starving today. And we've seen pictures of children starving. That's heartbreaking. What can Israel do about that, and what should Israel do about that?
The suffering in the Gaza Strip is indeed very tragic. There are attempts of Hamas to produce fake news as if there is some policy of starvation from the part of Israel. That is not true. And there have been pictures that have been disseminated all over the world with children that are in very harsh conditions. These children that were shown in these pictures were children that were suffering from pre-existing conditions, from genetic disease. The fact of the matter is that Israel has facilitated 2 million tons of food into the Gaza Strip. Imagine, there hasn't been in the history of conflict a country that has been facilitating the supply of so much food to the other side. The problem was that Hamas was sequestrating this food, and Israel was trying to take that humanitarian assistance out of Hamas' hands and give it directly to the population. Hamas was trying to undermine that, and that created problems. So there was hunger, no doubt, in the Gaza Strip. We are now, as a fact of the matter, in the last week, we've been sending much more assistance. There are 350 trucks per day, 130 airdrops per day, and there are 1.5 million meals that are being distributed by this new body that we have encouraged to operate in Gaza, which is the Gaza Humanitarian Fund. So we are going to expand that operation, especially to prepare for the Gaza offensive. We are going to expand the number of distribution points from 4 to 16. So Israel, although there has been a problem of hunger in the Gaza Strip because of Hamas, because of the sequestration of aid by Hamas, Israel is very keen to refrain that from happening. And when it comes to the numbers of casualties you mentioned, here also there are a lot of fake news, because there's no doubt that a lot of innocent people have died as a result of the fact that Hamas is using them as human shields. But also many of the numbers are death from natural causes, and death as a result of misfiring of Hamas and other terrorist organizations. Actually the ratio of innocent civilians that have been killed compared to combatants is one of the lowest compared to other scenarios of urban warfare around the world. There is a lot of attempts to demonize Israel, say that Israel is committing genocide. But Israel, actually, the number of people in Gaza has grown 450% in the last 50 years. So there's
you're saying it's
no
fake
way
news.
we are doing. Yes.
You're saying it's fake news.
Absolutely.
But journalists are being killed in Gaza. I believe 5 journalists have been killed just in the past 24 hours.
That's another fake news, because the person that we targeted, his name is Anas al-Sharif. He was a Hamas military operative trained militarily by Hamas. He was a commander of a cell in Jabalia. And we know that because we have captured the intelligence documents of the intelligence of Hamas that was hiding under a UN facility. And we know that this person that was disguising as a Hamas journalist, he was also a Al Jazeera journalist, he was a terrorist. And we targeted him. That's completely legitimate. Again, another attempt to create fake news.
Within Israel, is everybody on the same page? Because within the cabinet, there are ministers who are against this indefinite war. The army has warned the prime minister, if this war continues indefinitely, the casualties will mount. And you've been fighting, your army's been fighting since 2022 on multiple fronts.
Well, first of all, the fact that there's difference of opinion in the Israeli cabinet and the Israeli public, that is something very natural. Anything that has to do with a war effort and with paying a dear price in terms of our economy, our soldiers, our civilians, is something that is debated. However, the difference is not between those who want to have indefinite war and those who don't. The debate is regarding how we can safeguard both the defeat of Hamas while bringing back the hostages. And that has been very difficult. We have been successful so far partially because we've been able to bring back most of the hostages. But as we are nearing the last batches of hostages, it's becoming more difficult because Hamas understands that they have to admit defeat, and they don't want to do that. And therefore, it's tough. But we have to be persistent. At the end of the day, the cabinet has adopted a decision, and the cabinet will execute it.
Okay. So you have Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who says they will recognize Palestine as a state. Some of the European partners are not in favor of giving weapons, that including Germany, that can be used in the Gaza Strip. So is Israel increasingly becoming isolated?
Well, there is criticism, but I think that those countries that have taken this decision are actually contributing to the prolongation of the war, because their decision to recognize a non-existent state is not going to help found a Palestinian state. But what is happening is that they are actually encouraging Hamas. Hamas is taking credit for these recognitions. They are saying that thanks to the 7th of October, these countries now are actually recognizing Palestine.
So is there a change in the
two-state?
Okay.
And therefore, we encourage the international community to be patient. They shouldn't surrender to internal pressures, and we know that there are many leaders actually are calling our prime minister and are telling him, look, we support your fight against Hamas, but we have pressures at home. So instead of withstanding the pressure and doing what is right, these countries are actually surrendering to these pressures and playing to the hands of Hamas, prolonging the war. This is not helping the situation.
So is Israel in favor of two-state solution, or you don't accept the two-state solution at all now?
Israel is in favor of Palestinian self-rule that doesn't want to destroy the state of Israel. When the Palestinians decide that they want to build their own state more than they want to destroy our state, then there's going to be a Palestinian state. But the fact of the matter is that Hamas has been sequestrating all their economic power and all the assistance they have gathered of tens of millions of dollars in the last 20 years in Gaza, not to build a Palestinian state. They had one in Gaza, just to destroy Israel. So they will never have a state if they try to destroy Israel. The only way of having their own self-rule is by respecting Israel, by accepting Israel.
So what happens to these 2 million people in Palestine right now? Already most of them have been displaced. Will all of them be displaced, removed from that territory? Where will they go as you rebuild or reconstruct or look for a situation post-Hamas or post-Palestinian Authority?
Well,
you don't want Palestinian Authority either.
You know, Gaurav, unlike many conflicts around the world in which refugees can freely move to neighboring safe areas until the war is over, the Palestinians weren't allowed to move. They were forced to stay because nobody wants to take them, okay? And therefore, Israel has been creating these humanitarian areas in order to supply people with safe havens, with food, with medicine. What has been happening so far is that Hamas has been infiltrating those areas to continue fighting. So this is a continuous challenge that Palestinians will continue to suffer until Hamas decides that enough is enough and they surrender power in the Gaza Strip. If they refuse, Israel will have to go all the way to take Gaza City and ultimately to get the entire strip.
When does this operation start, and by when is it likely to be over in your view, sir?
We haven't published any operational plans. This is up to the IDF forces and the capabilities to write plans and to approve them in the cabinet. It can take time, and this will be a long operation. People have to understand what we are talking about here. An entire city with hundreds of kilometers of tunnels underneath it. First of all, we have to make sure that the population leaves, and then to start dealing with this infrastructure that is booby-trapped. You know, people have been complaining that entire cities in Gaza have been destroyed by Israel. But we didn't destroy them because we wanted to destroy them. We've been destroying them because they were booby-trapped. And the only way to actually take the territory was by explosives that would neutralize these booby traps. And therefore, this will be a slow and pretty painful process.
And this could cost more Israeli lives, it could cost more Palestinian lives.
Absolutely, unfortunately. But we can end it today. We could end it a year ago if Hamas would have renounced its grip on power, or release not only our hostages, the entire Palestinian population that it has taken hostage.
Ambassador Reuven Azar, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. So Israel's ambassador to India says this war can stop if Hamas were to renounce power. Else, Israeli forces are now gearing up to move in and take control of Gaza City, except that enclave that they intend to leave for the civilians to stay. Clearly, easier said than done. We'll be tracking that story very closely.